Hello everyone. Today we're going to look at profit and loss. We're going to look at two types of companies: corporations, where the owners are the shareholders, and partnerships, which is two or more owners. If the company is owned by a single person, then they are fully responsible for all loss and they get all the profit. So it's not very interesting mathematically. So first we're going to look at corporations. So as I said, the corporation's owners are the shareholders, and there are three major types of shares that we're going to look at. The first is called a common share, and if a corporation only has common share, then the total profit, which is usually called a dividend, is shared equally among all the shares. So if a corporation has a dividend of $125,000 and it has 10,000 shares of common stock, to find the dividend per share, we're just going to divide. So we take the dividend, 125,000, divide by the number of shares, 10,000, and we get $12.50 per share. If a corporation has $45,000 in dividends with 15,000 shares of common stock, find the dividend for John, who owns $100 of these shares. So first we're going to again divide the dividend by the number of shares. So 45,000 divided by 15,000. We get out $3 per share. John owns 100 shares, so we're going to multiply 3 by 100. And John gets $300. Okay, so if it only has common stocks, then it's the easiest one, which is why we do it first. It gets a little more interesting when we have the other types. So the next type we're going to look at is preferred shares. Preferred shares are paid out first, and then the common shares divide equally what, if anything, is left over. So it could be a case where if you have common shares, you don't get anything of the dividend. Okay, so preferred shares get paid out first, so it's really important that we take care of that one first. A preferred share looks something like some percentage of some dollar par value preferred stock outstanding. And it looks a little wordy here, but the only thing that we really care about is this part here. What percentage of what dollar amount? Okay. And then if there is enough money in the dividend, each preferred stock shareholder will receive that percentage of that dollar amount per share. So in this case, they would receive 8% of $100, which is $8. So assuming there's enough money, that's what's going to happen. If there's not enough money in the dividend, then the preferred shareholders divide the dividend equally amongst all the shares. So, for example, a corporation has $70,000 in dividends this year with 5,000 shares of 8% $100 par value preferred stock outstanding and 10,000 shares of common stock. Find the dividend per share of each type. So when you have more than one type of share, it's really important that in your answer you specify which one goes where. So don't just give me $5 and $8. I need to know it's $5 per preferred share and $10 per common share. So make sure you're writing clearly which one goes where. So the first thing we're going to do is, again, we're going to find 8% of $100. So just like last time, it's $8. Then we have to ask ourselves, does the dividend have enough to pay that out? So what we do is we look at the fact that it's $8 per share and there are 5,000 shares. So we would need $40,000 to pay out the $8 for every one of the 5,000 shares. So is there enough in the dividend to cover that? Yes. So the next thing we ask is what's left over. So we subtract. What's the dividend, 70,000, minus what we need to pay off the preferred shareholders, the 40,000. So there's $30,000 left over. That amount is what's going to get divided by the common shares. So what we do is we take that amount, the 30,000, divide by the 10,000, the number of shares of common stock, and we get out $3. So our final answer is the following: $8 per preferred share and $3 per common share. I don't know why I have the decimals with the 3 and not with the 8. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so again, make sure you're saying which one is which. Preferred share is $8, common share is $3. So let's try another one. A corporation has a dividend of $54,000 this year with 8,000 shares of 9% $100 par value preferred stock outstanding and 5,000 shares of common stock. Find the dividend per share of each type. So again, we ask ourselves, what's 9% of $100? 9. And does the dividend have enough to pay that out? So we have $9 per share. We have 8,000 shares. So we need $72,000. Is there enough? No, we need 72. We've only got 54. So if there's not enough, again, what we do is we take that whole dividend and divide by the number of shares of preferred stock. So 54,000 divided by 8,000, 675 per preferred share. There's nothing left over, so the common share gets nothing. Okay? So again, 675 per preferred, common share gets absolutely nothing. So that can be the case. And the third type is called cumulative preferred stock. So it's a type of preferred stock, and a corporation won't have both. They won't have preferred and cumulative preferred. They're only going to have one of them. So we'll deal with common stock and then possibly one of preferred or cumulative preferred. So cumulative preferred has to do with cumulative, which means adding things together. So if you have cumulative preferred stock, that means they're going to get like a back pay for any years that didn't have a dividend. So for example, suppose a corporation has a dividend of $100,000 this year and didn't have a dividend for the previous 2 years. It has 6,000 shares of 7% $50 par value cumulative preferred stock outstanding and 5,000 shares of common stock. Find the dividend per share of each type. So we start off the same way we did before. What is 7% of $50? So it's going to be $3.50 per share per year. So in order to tell if there's enough in the dividend, we're going to take the $3.50, we're going to multiply it by the 6,000 for the number of shares, and we're also going to multiply it by 3 because of this year and the previous 2 years. So the biggest mistake I see people do is they'll multiply it by 2 because they'll see the 2 in the problem. So it's the previous 2 years, but also this year. So it's going to be 3 times. So the company will have to pay out $63,000 for all of the cumulative preferred shares. And they have 100,000, so they do have enough. And just like before, I need to figure out what's left over. And we should have $37,000 left over for the common share. So we take what's left over, divide it by the number of common shares, and we get $7.40. So how much are each type of share get? Common shareholders get $7.40. Preferred shareholders get the $3.50 times the 3, because again, the 2 previous years plus this year. So the common shareholders are getting $10.50 per share. Okay, so again, with the cumulative, you have to multiply it by how many years they're getting paid for. This year plus any previous years that didn't have a dividend. So let's try another one. Suppose a corporation has a dividend of $75,000 this year and didn't have any last year. If the corporation has 3,000 shares of 10% $100 par value cumulative preferred stock outstanding and 5,000 shares of common stock, find the dividend per share of each type. So again, we start with what's 10% of 100? $10. Do we have enough? So we multiply the $10 by 2 last year and this year, and then the 3,000 shares that we have. So the corporation needs 60,000 to pay out the cumulative preferred shareholders. It has 75, so we do have enough. What's left over for the common shareholders? 15,000. How much does each common share get? We take the 15,000, divide by the 5,000, and we get $3 per share. There was supposed to be a pause here. So common shareholders get $3. Preferred shareholders get the $10 times, again, the 2 for the 2 years. So the preferred shareholders get $20. Sometimes the discrepancy between preferred and common is a lot, $3 versus 20. It can also go the other way. If their dividend is really big, common shareholders can end up getting a lot more than the preferred shareholders. Or they could end up getting the same amount. So it's not always one gets more than the other. It can go either way. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so make sure you try out some of these problems with the corporations. But next we're going to move on to partnerships. So a partnership is, again, a company that's owned by at least 2 people. And if they don't have a written agreement, then they split all profits and losses equally. Most agreements, though, include some or all of the following. Ratios. Almost every partnership is going to involve some type of ratio. Then they might also have salaries, and they might also have interest on investments. So these are the 3 main ones, so these are the ones we're going to deal with. For example, Mary and Alex agree to split all profits and losses in the ratio 5-3. Find their profits on a total profit of $56,000. So whenever you see a ratio in the form of something like 5-3, it's always in the same order as the way that we named the people. So Mary is the 5, Alex is the 3. So what you have to do is find the ratio not just of Mary to Alex, but Mary to total and Alex to total. So remember, the total is going to be the sum of the 2 pieces of the ratio. So Mary's ratio is going to be 5-8, and Alex's ratio will be 3-8. So Mary's going to get 5/8 of 56,000, which is 35,000. Remember, of means multiplication, so 5/8 times 56,000. And Alex is going to get 3/8 of 56,000, which is 21,000. 2 things to keep in mind. Make sure your ratios add up to 1. Make sure your totals add up to the original total. Okay, so 35,000 plus 21,000 is 56,000. So you always want to make sure your answer makes sense. I have to account for the entire 56,000. So let's try another one. Bob, Claire, and Dave agree to pay a salary of $2,000 for Bob and to split the remainder in the ratio of their investments, which were $20,000, $15,000, and $10,000 respectively. Find each profit on a total profit of $74,000. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table, and the table's headings are going to be person, investment, ratio, and then the rest depends on what they're actually getting paid out. So from here, everything to the left doesn't actually get added into total. So the total here is only the salary plus the rest. Okay? Because it says they agree to a salary, and the remainder, which is the same as rest, is the ratio of their investments. So when I say total, I'm adding salary plus rest. The investment is not part of their total. They paid that a long time ago. They're not getting it back. And the ratio is just going to be a ratio, so you're not going to be adding that to it. Okay, so the total is the salary plus the rest or the remainder. So I need the ratio of their investments, which means I need their total investment. So that's the first thing I got to do. How much did they invest in total? So I add them up and I get 45,000. Next, I need to find their ratios. So again, it's the ratio of their investments. Last time the ratio was just a number, 5 to 3. So the ratio can be anything. It can be 5 to 3, it can be split evenly, it can be a ratio of their investments, it can be anything, but you have to pay attention to what it says in the problem. So in this case, it's the ratio of their investments. So again, Bob's ratio is going to be 20,000 divided by 45,000, or 20 over 45, if I cancel all the zeros. I can cancel a 5, and I get 4/9, and that's for Bob. For Claire, again, I'm going to cancel the zeros. We're left with 15 over 45. Cancel the 5s, cancel a 15 rather, and you get 1/3. And then do the same thing for Dave. 10 over 45, cancel the 5s, and we're going to have 4/9 for Bob, 1/3 for Claire, 2/9 for Dave. And again, you want to make sure that the total ratio is 1. So always check that when you add up your ratios, they're 1. Don't round. Don't call 4/9 0.44. Okay, it's got to be the whole thing. So you want to leave them as fractions. Again, 1/3 is not 0.33. Do not round. So once we found the ratio, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the salary. So the salary is 2,000 for Bob, and that's it. So 2,000 for Bob, Claire gets 0 salary, Dave gets 0 salary. The total salary is the 2,000 from Bob. Okay. And then the last thing before the total is the rest or the remainder. So in order to figure out what goes here, I need what is here. I need to find what is left over. What's the remainder? What's the rest? So remember, the total equals the salary plus the rest. The total better be 74,000. So I know 74,000 equals the salary, which is 2,000, plus the rest. So 74,000 minus 2,000 is the remainder, which is 72,000. So the rest column, I have to find the total before I can find the individual ones. And that's the only one that really goes backwards. So once I found the rest, I'm going to multiply this number by their ratios. So Bob's remainder or rest will be 4/9 of 72,000. Claire's rest will be 1/3 of 72,000. Dave's rest will be 2/9 of 72,000. So again, I'm just multiplying, and I can fill it in. Okay, so once I have that, again, the total, I'm just going to add those two together. Add those two together, add those two together. And then to make sure that what I'm doing is correct, I'm going to add these three and make sure it's also the 74,000. Okay, so you always want to check your work. Again, always make sure your answers make sense. Did I account for the whole 74,000? Okay. Let's do another one. Abe, Kat, and Jen agreed to a salary of $3,000 for Abe and Kat, interest of 5% on all investments, which was $10,000, $20,000, and $25,000, and to split the remainder in the ratio of 2 to 3 to 5. Find each profit on a total profit of $45,000. So again, we're going to start with our table. So person investment ratio. And again, those are the ones that are not part of the total. And then we have salary, interest, the rest or the remainder, and then the total. So here I have an extra column with interest. Okay. So I put in all their investments, and then I add up the total. And then for this question, I actually don't need the total investment. It's not important at all because the ratio is just 2 to 3 to 5. But I'm going to include it anyway. So for Abe, his ratio is 2 to the total, and the total ratio is 2 plus 3 plus 5, which is 10. So Abe's ratio is 2 to 10, which is 1/5. Kat's is 3 to 10, and Jen's is 5 to 10, which is 1/2. So again, I'm going to simplify those fractions. 1 over 5, 3 over 10, 1 over 2. Add them up, make sure you're getting 1. Okay. Now after that, I go into what are they actually getting. So for salary, we have $3,000 for Abe and for Kat. Jen doesn't get any, and then the total salary is the $6,000. For interest, it's 5% on their investment. So Abe is getting 5% of $10,000. Kat is getting 5% of $20,000, and Jen is getting 5% of $25,000. So again, it's a basic percent problem. What is 5,000 of 10,000? 5% of 10,000. That's 500. 5% of 20,000 is 1,000. 5% of 25,000 is 1,250. So the interest is the percentage, not the ratio. I'm not using the ratio yet. Okay, so the interest is 5%. Next, I want to do the rest. But again, before I can fill these in, I need to know the total rest. So in this case, the total is the salary plus the interest plus the rest. The total I know is 45,000. Salary is 6,000. That's okay. Interest, I'm putting it in thousands. What is that? Plus the rest. So I'm going to take the total, subtract the salary, subtract the interest, and that's going to give me my rest. Okay? So I should be getting 36,250. So again, I know this total needs to be 45,000. Okay? And then from here, I'm going to take my ratios, multiply it by my rest to find these guys. So 1/5 of 36,250 is for Abe, 3/10 of 36,250 is for Kat, and Jen gets half of it. So we fill those in. Double check it, make sure these add up to 36,250. You always want to check, especially when you're in the middle, so that you're not checking for the first time at the very end, where you then have to go and check every single step along the way anyway. Okay, next total. Again, I'm just adding salary plus interest plus rest for each person. And I get these guys. And then to check it, I need to make sure that if I add them together, I get 45,000. And I do. Depending on the ratio, you might have change, and then you might have to round. So this might be 45,000 and a penny. It could be $44,999.98, right? But just make sure it's really close. The rule of thumb really is you can be off by at most 1 penny for every 2 people. So I've got 3 people, so rounded, that could be at most off by 2 cents. But again, ours were all nice, even dollar amounts, so I should come out exact. Okay, so I want you to practice this. Remember, there are different types. There's the salary, there's an interest, and then the ratio can be any type of ratio you want. So just make sure you know what the ratio is in each case. So try some out. Let me know if you have any questions, and good luck.